Welcome to Beyond the Closing Table. I'm your host, Michael Martin, and I'm here to interview top producing real estate agents, mortgage lenders, and successful business owners. Today, my guest is none other than April Stevens. So glad you're here today, April.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. We've talked about it for a while, but we made it happen despite the craziness of life and everything that goes around. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be here, especially in this weather. We had a little bit of rain today, nastiness. I want to talk about you, right? The audience here is typically real estate agents and lenders and business owners. And so you've got a heck of a story, and I want to kind of get into the depths of some of that. So let's kind of start from the very beginning, if you don't mind, at least what I know of the beginning, and you go back further. But you're in EMS, right? You were involved in EMS and as well as the Army National Guard. Is that right?
Yeah, I was an Army medic.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about kind of how you ended up in that role. And then naturally, perfect transition to real estate, right? Makes total sense.
Yeah, sure. So it started that I didn't have money to go to college. I knew from an early age that I wanted to be a nurse and tried working and going to school, and that was not an option. So I decided to join the military to use the GI Bill. At the time that I went in, they did not have a nursing program anymore. However, they had a paramedic program, or medic as we call it. So I joined the Army to become a medic, came back and started working full-time for the Army and absolutely loved it. Loved everything about my job, my role. Actually, like I said, worked in Raleigh as the safe aviation and safety secretary.
Okay.
So I got to do physicals and also schedule helicopter missions. I don't know why they put those two together, but it was a really fun job.
Schedule helicopter missions to where?
So all around the county. They do what's called raid missions, where they have glass bottom helicopters that they literally fly in the air and they can identify drugs from the air based on certain colors. So that is what the raid team did. I got to schedule their fun missions. So when you see the National Guard show up with their helicopters at school functions, scout functions, things like that, I got to schedule their fun missions, as you will. So love doing that. And then I got to train other combat lifesavers down at like Fort Bragg and in my unit in Goldsboro.
Did you ever have to leave the country while you're in the military?
I did not.
Okay.
So a part of my testimony is actually my unit had not been deployed since World War I until 9/11 happened. And I had recently met my husband. We got married and I got pregnant. And literally my unit deployed on the day that my daughter was born. She came
goodness.
4 days early on my husband's birthday. So like I said, it was just kind of tenfold. And for that reason, I ended up not deploying and then eventually decided to get out of the military, which is how I ended up being a secretary for a construction company and how I found my way into real estate.
Interesting. So you worked as a secretary for a construction company.
Yes.
So that kind of was the entry-level place, as you said, to real estate. What did you do there, and what brought you specifically from that place to real estate?
Started with just answering the phones, keeping up with billing, and then they mainly were a commercial contractor, but they did residential on the side, keep guys busy, etc. So I started doing some of the marketing for them. They had a real estate broker, but I just thought it was fun, and then became just very immersed in it. I just really loved every piece from what I call concept to closing. So picking out the plans, taking them to permitting, doing the entire process. I just found that I loved it. And seeing my passion, the builder that I worked for, he said, well, if you like it, I'll send you to real estate school. And just dating myself, it was night school at Johnston Community College. So I did that at night, and I had a toddler, and the rest I feel like is history. It's been 19 years ago this year.
19 years.
Yep.
Wow. That's a journey for sure. I moved to Raleigh in 2002. So I guess this year is going to be 24 years, something like that. Yeah. So 23, I guess. Yeah. We're finishing up, heading into 24th year. Awesome. So you kind of come from, you've built a really amazing big team here over the last few years. How did you get, so after 19 years later, why don't you give me a little bit of the journey that it started from, like what you, maybe even some of the mistakes you made. I think it's always important for people. And if you're in business for any period of time, you're making mistakes, right? What are some of the mistakes that you feel like you made early on that maybe somebody listening or watching can try to learn from you?
Twofold. I can tend to be a little stubborn, which I tell people is focused disobedience. I can't remember what I said earlier. It was funny outside, but no, it's I can be stubborn and I like to do things my own way to a fault. I think that's part of being an only child, also. But there is a lot you can learn from other people that have gone down the path ahead of you, and so I was very fortunate early on to have some really good mentors in the business, some of which I listened to and some of which I didn't, and so. When I decided to start my team, it was very similar to how a lot of teams get started. I was too busy, so I needed to go find other people to be busy with me. And I started with a buyer's agent and then grew from there once I started creating some new construction opportunities, because you need more people to help work new construction. So it started there. And I remember when I wanted to start my team, I was actually the youngest person on my team when I started it. So I had these agents.
Everybody you're hiring is older than you.
Everybody that I was hiring was older than me, and had been in business. Several of them had been in business longer than I had. And so I remember when I first started, it was very popular then that team leaders were set up as you had listing agents and you had buyer's agent, and then you had the head team leader, and that was it. And I had a really hard time telling these agents who were not only older than me, but had had their license longer than me, hey, you can no longer list properties. Everything's got to go through me. And so for that reason, I felt like I kind of started my team differently. I immediately started cross-training that everybody can learn to do listings and buyers. You can be good at both. Naturally, most people have a preference, and are better at one than the other, but you can be good at both. So I feel like that was a win. But I do feel like sometimes I didn't listen to people enough to not have to go down the path to make mistakes. And I did that my fair share. So I would say, listen to mentors, the ones who've done it before you, but also put your own spin on it. You can do it the same, but you can do it differently and maybe a little bit better.
Great. I appreciate you sharing that. I think when you are growing, there's so much you have to learn, and you obviously want to surround yourself around people that have already, had some great success. As you said, you had some great mentors. But it doesn't mean you're not going to make plenty of mistakes along the way. And you can't be afraid to make those mistakes, because you're going to learn a lot more, I think, sometimes from those mistakes than you are from some of the successes.
100%.
Yeah. Interesting. Like you were talking about how you were the youngest person on your team. Most of the time I've had a team, I've been the only male on my team. And we have a gentleman in our office now. He's a loan officer. And we've had a few, licensed officer assistants that were male, but most everybody has been female. So I've been the one, the solo male. And of course, I have a wife and daughter at home. And for the longest time, we had a female dog. So literally, I was like the only male person around. And fortunately, working with women for me has been a blessing, because the folks, we don't really. Our team is like the drama-free team, and it is like we just had the best ladies around to be able to help with that. On your Instagram, you mentioned that you're passionate about God, family, and helping others. How do those values show up in your business, especially when markets get tough or deals get crazy?
Well, another blessing, I feel like, is that when I did get my real estate license, it was at the end of 2006. So I got in just in time to experience the recession in its full force. And
it's kind of like folks that just got into business a year or two ago.
Right.
I think they're dealing with some of the, after the fallout of 2020, 2021.
Well, and I've always looked at that as a blessing. Again, everybody else was walking around, very woe is me, Chicken Little, the sky is falling. And I didn't know any different. All I knew was I needed to get to work. And that was my only option. So I think I was very humbled coming up through the recession as far as who I was as an agent. When you start your business going, my first 6 months, I was selling custom homes to everybody who was moving down from up north. That was that was the majority of our market in 2007. And to fast forward 12 months.
Very Southern lady selling homes to these very, Yankee people.
Yes. I won't ever forget. It's a long story, but one of the first Yankees I worked with, I'm not one to curse. I never really have been. It's a big part of my faith, but he cursed every other word. And I felt like I was blushing every showing, every time we talked. And finally, the agent on the other side, he's been around our area forever, and he knew I was a newer agent. And he was like, "Do you want me to say something to him?" Because you could tell that's just not how I talk. So anyway, it was funny that he felt like he needed to defend me in that situation. So, but all that to say, I went from selling houses to people moving from up north paying cash and just pick one, to all of a sudden I'm meeting with people and they're upside down in their house and they don't know where they're going to go. I mean, it happened so fast. It was really, it gave you whiplash, not only in your own personal life, but in your professional life as well. Cause we're all concerned. My husband worked at a company that ended up closing during the recession, and there was so much unknown and fear, but at the same time, one thing that didn't change is people still have to have shelter. They have to have a roof over their head, whatever that looks like. So, it was really interesting navigating those waters. And I feel like I did a lot of it solo just because there weren't as many agents getting into the business at the time that I did.
Sure.
I think in my pre-licensing, there may have been 8 of us.
Wow.
It was a very small class. And I felt like most of the agents around me were just running scared. And they had every right to be. The market was absolutely crashing. And I felt like I was just kind of in the middle, like, I got to make the best of this doomsday scenario. And for that reason, I felt like I have been successful. So,
and you also, of course, had like a 3-year-old at the time, right?
That was very fun. Yeah. All the unknowns and fun things. But again, I feel like you can look at those opportunities and, everybody has this internal fight or flight. And I think for me, the only thing I knew to do was fight.
Yeah. It's funny that the people talk about fight or flight all the time. There's another one too. It's freeze, right? And it's really interesting to see how people will react in challenging situations. I'm very much like you. Like, I can't imagine freezing. I can't imagine, running or flighting, right? But so you just got to stick there and figure it out. Having tough conversations, to me, is way easier, even though it's not fun and can be challenging. It's way easier to have a tough conversation than it is for it to blow up later, because that's what's going to happen if you don't address it, right? My team knows that, right? We run EOS. It's just, we were talking a little bit about that earlier. And so in our meetings that we have, one of the biggest things about EOS is solving issues, and so that they never happen again, like permanently solving them. And how my previous guest was talking about how the compound effect of solving a problem forever. It truly is amazing to think about that versus something that, you maybe even only have to deal with something 5 minutes or 10 minutes each time, but that added up for years is a big deal. But having the ability to have that tough conversation whenever it's needed, it generally is going to, right, the fight, I think in many cases there, it's not really about fighting necessarily the other person. It's about fighting for yourself and fighting for the situation.
100%.
Ultimately shows your character, I think, to the people you work with, not only your team, but the people that you're working with, your clients, the other agent on the other side of the situation. They're dealing with the same problem too. So I think that's crucial. Again, you mentioned obviously passionate about God and family. Tell me a little bit about your family dynamic. Where's your what's your family look like?
Yeah, so I've been married going on 23 years now. We've got a daughter. She just turned 22. So we're kind of like a little triangle. I feel like the 3 of us. She just graduated college, just moved back. She's working with us a little bit. She's got a couple different roles because we have a few different businesses. So she's just kind of building her resume right now and figuring out what that looks like. And my husband works with us as well. He does commercial real estate and land acquisition. So that kind of helps with what we're trying to build in the new construction arena. And I actually...
You guys doing some development at all, or?
A little bit, yeah. We work with a couple developers. Okay. Like I said, I love to, going back to our last conversation, I love to fight for opportunity. And if I see there's a need for an opportunity, I love the opportunity to create it. So that's kind of where we've been heading in the past couple of years, was trying to build that up to have an area where we can create more opportunities for our company.
Got it. That's awesome. You guys, you told me, when I reached out to you about being on the podcast, I had a great conversation on the phone, and I remember trying to book an appointment with you for us to have a meeting. I think we were going to have a conversation about something. You were driving. I was like, hey, I can tell you're driving. I'll just send you some dates, text you some dates, and you can let me know which of those work. And you're like, oh, it's okay. I'm not really driving. So tell me a little bit about you. You guys clearly have an obsession for a certain kind of car out there.
Yes, we are a Tesla family.
Yes.
So my husband has the truck, the ugly truck. We can all agree it's ugly.
Is it silver or is it?
No, we had it wrapped in black as soon as it came off.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
we literally left the dealership, went straight to have it wrapped, so
Yeah.
it didn't look like a refrigerator on wheels. I do love that thing though. It's really impressive. And then I have a Tesla, and my daughter has one as well. And honestly, you can say what you want. They are so safe, and it allows me to be more effective and efficient, I feel like. I know I was not being a safe driver. I love to do videos in my car. I have 2 cell phone holders. I feel like if you're going to do something, you can figure out a way to make sure it's not hindering someone else, for lack of a better word. But we are a Tesla family, and we absolutely love it. It's really nice, going back to what you're talking about, decision making. Like, once we bought those, I was like, it's nice not to drive past every dealership now and think, do I want a new car? Nope, I never do, unless they come out with a new model of what I have.
Yeah.
It's really neat to kind of have that decision off of our plate.
It's funny. I was thinking about it just earlier this morning. 'Cause I just bought my wife a new. Well, I didn't buy her a new car. She bought herself a new car. She wanted my help in getting some opinions and thoughts about it, but she handled the whole thing herself. And she buys new cars and then keeps them for 7 years, right? So, and she ended up getting an X5, and it's gorgeous. I love this car. It's one of those plug-in hybrids. But if I bought a new car, after the conversation I had with you, it's like, I want a self-driving car because of the same reasons. The safety concerns, because I struggle. I'm, just flat out admit I struggle, like making sure that phone is kept separate, and it just the efficiency piece of that, right? So when I'm out in the car, and I know the way my business is changing, I'm getting out of the office significantly more, and so I'm going to be in that car more. And so I'm considering, that's Tesla's really the only car that self-drives.
It really has got it figured out.
Yeah.
I was coming home from Fayetteville Friday night when the big storm came through, and I was very concerned because I could barely see the roads. I had my hazards on, and my daughter was like, just put it in self-driving. And it made me so nervous, even though I've been driving these cars for 3+ years. But I was so much more confident when it driving than I was myself, because it's just hard to beat that technology. It was so impressive.
Yeah.
It really is safer than me most days. It drives better than I do.
If I came home with that truck, I think my family may disown me, but I may look at one of the S's or something. It's definitely interesting. I'm very curious about it. Okay, so there's a couple of things I want to make sure we talk about today. You have created recently, over the last few years, created your own real estate school, and so tell me how did you get the idea to do that? Why did you decide to move forward with it? And then what's it doing for you or the people in your community now?
It's truly a passion project. Honestly, I had the idea for a while. I'm not even an instructor. I have some great instructors that I've partnered with, but what I saw was a real need for some real world training. And part of it came from dealing with other agents on the other side of the transaction. I had, I say this, but one of the catalysts was I had an agent, and it was not her first, second, or third transaction. She was a buyer's agent on one of my listings, and she asked me what we did with the septic tank. I said, what do you mean? What do we do with a septic tank? And she said, well, I see in the pictures it was in the backyard, but it's now been removed, or did y'all bury it? And she was referencing an old oil tank in a Google Earth photo. I guess her buyer had asked her. And at that point, I was like, no, ma'am, that's an old oil tank. A septic tank's never going to be above ground. There's a lot more issues if it is. And I just thought, wow, there is... And I got back to thinking, I was very fortunate that the way I was brought into the business was by a general contractor who had never run a brokerage. So I didn't have an agent just saying, follow me to this open house, follow me to the showing. I literally had to figure everything out myself. But I also had a contractor guiding me along the way and made sure I understood a lot of the parts of the home. And I just realized that they don't teach us anything about that really in real estate school. Very little about real world training for realtors. And so I decided to start it. And especially after COVID, it was kind of in the middle of COVID that we came up with the idea, but really wanted to implement it. After COVID, I realized that so many offices went away with sales trainings. They didn't get together every week. And if they did, it was just, does anybody have anything new to talk about? And then you insert all the industry disruptions and changes that we've had over the last 3 or 4 years. It's so important that there is a space for agents to go find out about this, especially if their firms aren't offering sales meetings and trainings. The associations can only do so much. You have to plug in. So it was my passion project to educate realtors on what they really know and how to be successful in protecting their clients in real estate. So that's why it's called The Real School. It's real world training for realtors. Because unfortunately we're handed our license and then we're sent out to go practice on our profit, and we're practicing with other people's investments, and it's scary, to be honest. And I was a baby, I thought, when I got my license at 23 years old, and luckily I bought my first house at 20, so I'd at least been through the process. But it was still hard to get people to trust me at that age, that I knew what I was doing with their investments, and I'll be honest, I didn't know what I was doing. And so it's really important to me that agents get plugged in and find ways that they can constantly stay not just CE bare minimum, but stay truly knowing and investing in their career. So, I mean, we talk about everything from septic tanks to running CMAs to how to read appraisals to we do muddy boots tours. We take you from new construction, that's at foundation, framing, into a finished product. So if you're walking a client through the process, you know what questions to ask and you know how to calm their fears and help them navigate it. So yeah, literally just a little bit of everything that I feel like they don't teach you in real estate school, and we can't be dependent on the companies teaching these things. And instead, it's more of a trial by fire, and I feel like that's very dangerous.
Yeah, it definitely is. Like you said, they're practicing on clients, on real clients. You certainly wouldn't want surgery where surgeons are practicing on real people.
Right.
And we're talking about very expensive things that they're buying, right? I mean, houses are
life-changing.
Life-changing for sure. And so I think it is crucial that folks work with people that are experienced, or at least that have training. Go into your real estate school. So I really have been very curious about it. Is it a school that you can, hey, I want to get my real estate license, and they can do pre-licensing there? Is it just for CE? Is it stuff that has nothing to do with either one of those?
It's everything. Thank you for asking. I get so passionate about the passion part of it, the why behind it, that I do forget that we are also an actual school. So we offer pre-licensing, post-licensing, and CE. We focused a lot on trying to bring things that you don't typically see in CE. So we did a CE this spring that was your disc. Learning your disc profile and how to interpret other people based on identifying what their disc is. And so you make sure you're speaking their language, for lack of a better word, based on their personality type. So we really work on trying to be that great hybrid option for every agent. So the school is open to any agent, any company, all the time. There's never any EXP talk or anything like that. It's literally just how can we help you achieve more, not just in generating leads, but also how to run your business, how to invest, all the things that they don't teach you as an entrepreneur.
You don't teach at all.
I'm not an instructor, but I do lead classes on farming, doing open houses. I built my business on doing open houses and new construction, selling new construction. I love teaching.
Does that mean you come in like as a guest speaker in a class or something?
I lead panels for team leaders and things like that. But I do have instructors that also teach the pre-licensing, post-licensing, and CE. And we have a hybrid. So we have in person and on Zoom, all the classes.
That's was the next question. Okay, great.
Yep.
Where is it physically located?
So we have a Garner location, which is right at the 4042 intersection at 121 Commerce Parkway. Those classes are every Wednesday at 11. They're also on Zoom. And then we just opened a Fayetteville location this year over off of, it's 124 Gillespie Street, so right downtown. And that's on Thursdays at 11.
Okay, cool. So there's just one day a week that they're open. Okay. You've mentioned Fayetteville a number of times in conversations that we've had. In fact, the time that I spoke with you when you were driving, you were on your way to Fayetteville that particular day. Tell me why you're in Fayetteville so much. What's going on there?
So, as you know, I'm a veteran, so I'm also very passionate about veterans. I used to train down at Fort Bragg, and my unit was in Goldsboro, so I know both of those markets. So it's always been my vision to kind of build a triangle behind the triangle, and making sure that we have strong support for our military markets. Unfortunately, especially in the military markets, they can sometimes be looked at as easy clients, and just because they're constantly moving and constantly being transferred does not mean that they don't deserve an exemplary level of treatment all the way around. And so it was very important to me, not only for the buyer community down there, but also the building community, that we represent them very well and make sure that our veterans are treated very well throughout the process. So again, just kind of another piece that I was passionate about. And
So do you have a team down there?
I do. So my team reaches down there. We actually
Okay.
cover 8 counties. We go
Okay.
to the beach as well now. And everybody is geographically placed for a reason. And the lines are all growing together, especially with the infrastructure that's being put in, where I started in Garner, Johnston County seems so far away. And now, our hub is Johnston County, but getting on 40 to 95, I'm in Fayetteville in 35, 40 minutes. Same thing with Goldsboro. That's no different than us driving to Raleigh at this point. So it's kind of we've noticed that the clients are starting to what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of grow together in that way. And so our business, that's a good word. Our business has just done that with them. And especially for affordability options. I kind of I bought my first house in Johnson County because it was cheaper than where I was from in Garner. And you know how this typically goes. You just keep going a little bit farther out until you get to where you feel like it's affordable. And what we've seen is our markets growing together in that way.
Yeah, it's without a doubt we're saying it's going to continue to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were on a panel with Jim Allen back at the RE Bar Camp,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things Jim said that just resonated with me so much is you want to get in the real estate, you want to get in the new construction side of things, go find me some dirt in Smithfield,
Mm-hmm.
right? He was very specific about how the growth to Smithfield is probably kind of like falling maybe right after there was to Sanford, right? And that the growth there is just, and it's just getting further and further apart. You look at other markets like Charlotte, which I think Charlotte think of as a bigger footprint, yet when you look at ours, there's more people in the denser place with Charlotte, but ours is probably just as wide as theirs are when you look at the county spread and the county sizes that we have too. There's immense different ways that I market. Wake is the center, but then it's all the surrounding counties, and it's starting to become all the surrounding counties around those because of the growth that we're having. It's just it's just impressive. I just wanted to take a quick second and say thank you so much for watching our podcast so far. If you do me a huge favor before you forget about it, to like, subscribe, and if you would just leave a quick comment about what you think of the podcast. And if you want to share it with your friends, I'd love that too. Thanks again so much. We'll finish up right now. So sounds like you're down in Fayetteville a fair amount, and you obviously said you love to serve veterans.
Mm-hmm.
I just always like to mention, Fairway, and I don't remember if you've been to one of our events or not, but Fairway, we have a nonprofit within Fairway called American Warrior Initiative.
Yep, I've done the certification.
I was thinking you
Yep.
did. Did you do the one that was in the City Club or whatever a couple years ago, back in 2019?
Yes.
Yes. Right. And if you remember from that whole thing, it was very much about real estate agents, and that was pre-COVID, right? During COVID, veterans and VA loans really got the shaft in such a poor way because too many listing agents didn't understand a way to communicate to their sellers that this may be just as good of an option as a conventional buyer. You just have to make sure that we're covered and protected. Now, there are times where it wouldn't have been, right? And it's way too much risk for a seller to take on. Fair enough. You got to make sure you're making a good decision for yourself. But don't just throw out the VA loan because it's one of several options that are out there. In fact, many cases, the VA loan in that case, when you're in a multiple offer situation, could still be even a better one. Due diligence is still due diligence. They're taken care of there. It's 100% financing. Maybe they've got $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in the bank that will allow them, even if it doesn't appraise, right, to be able to help them through that. But I love the AWI certification that we did for agents because it's all about helping train agents that probably don't know how to serve veterans. And that may not be their primary market, but they're going to come across people that are veterans that are looking to purchase a home. And we certainly agree with what you're saying is that, veterans certainly deserve every bit of respect, in fact, if not more than any other of our traditional buyers. I'm also on the board. In fact, we that's where I really got involved, was that particular event for an organization called the Joel Fund, which is out of Wake Forest, and it's all about veteran focusing and helping ultimately helping reduce suicides through a number of different tactics and ways. But thank you again for your service. Let's talk about some other pieces, because I think where you're growing your team and where you're growing your business, I think is natural from all the different things you've spoken about. In your coaching or mentoring new agents, April, are there some specific common mindset barriers or limiting beliefs that you find with newer people into the business that you help them overcome?
Absolutely. And I think, a lot of times when I'm asked to speak and I talk about how I build my business, and as soon as I say open houses, it's like eye rolls. And it's kind of like, really? Open houses? And I'm like, yes. There's no other place in our industry where somebody is going to walk in to you. I mean, we don't really just have walk-ins in our offices and things like that anymore, but walk in and want you to tell them about a property. Everything else I feel like is very, we have to go after them.
Mm-hmm.
It's more offensive, where
Sure.
an open house can almost be considered defensive. Like I'm standing here and I'm waiting on you to come in and ask
But you're
questions.
creating the opportunity by being there.
And you can create unlimited opportunities. And I think the things that kill me the most with new agents, and again, it was a blessing that I came up through the recession, because the amount of times that you were told no was way more than the amount of times you were told yes. And it's not because they didn't want to buy, it's that they couldn't. They literally, they had foreclosures, they had this, they had bankruptcies because of the recession on their list. And so, when I hear an agent say, well, I did an open house, it didn't work. That's not how it works.
That's like saying I put an advertisement out one time and it didn't work.
Yeah. People need to understand that everything in real estate is a law of averages. And if you just do it one time and it doesn't work, then you're not meant to last in this business. And, you have to get out of your comfort zone in any type of sales. And, I say it to my team a lot. I don't know if you're here, it's because you don't want to get up every day and let somebody else be in charge of how much you can make. So then why aren't you getting up every day and you taking charge of how much you can make? And especially now with since COVID, since people are working from home so much more often, open houses don't have to be Saturdays and Sundays anymore. You'd be surprised at how much traffic we get on new construction during the week. And I started that same way. In my new construction homes, I could sit behind a desk and answer the phone, or I could sit in a house and maybe somebody would drive by and I'd have an opportunity to pick up a client. Why would I not? I just kind of don't.
What's the difference?
What is the difference?
Yeah. Especially if it's new construction, you don't even really have to do anything. It's already set up and ready to go. If it's not, you may have to go put the signs out and all that kind of stuff. But still, that's not that much work.
Right.
Yep.
If you balance it out, I just think it's something that a lot of people just kind of roll their eyes at. And I even hear other agents saying, they're like, oh, we just do open houses to pacify the seller. No, I think the whole mentality behind it, no, you're not necessarily there to sell that one house. You're there to make a connection. Our entire business is driven around how many connections can we make. There's only so many people you can talk to in your sphere every day. There's only so many people you can meet at a coffee shop or out doing this, that, and the other. Why would you not be in houses and attempting to meet people in a house with what you're trying to sell them? It's just mind-blowing to me.
So the limiting belief is open houses don't work. What other type of limiting beliefs do you see that you kind of have to help overcome with newer agents?
I think if you really value yourself as an advisor, it's important that you understand you have something of value. You're not just trying to sell them on a house or a service. You're trying to sell them on not making a bad decision. One of my coaches said, he said he had a condo in a particular building in Arizona. And during the he bought it for $500,000, let's just say. During COVID, that unit, the value of that unit went upwards of 1.1 million because other units out there were selling, and we all know how there was limited inventory, etc. His realtor never called him to say, by the way, the values in this building have almost doubled since you bought. Are you interested in selling? Then obviously COVID ended, things started to normalize, and now when he wants to sell it, he's super devastated to find out that it's not worth nearly what he thought it was worth 3 or 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And the first thing he said was, had I known, I would have sold hands down.
Sure.
So he feels like, and I see that, and I preach this to my team, his agent did him a disservice by not advising him on when it was a good time. And so we're doing the same thing. If we're not staying in front of our sphere, constantly making sure they know what their options are, it doesn't mean we're trying to sell them on something. You know, if my best friend's husband was a weatherman, I surely would expect him to let me know when I really needed to batten down the hatches.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's no different. We are, just because we're in sales doesn't mean that that's what we're always trying to do. We're also trying to advise people in a tough situation. You know, it breaks my heart to hear people I know that go into foreclosure, because I'm like, why didn't you call me? I could have. You may not have walked away with anything, but you would have walked away without a foreclosure on your. And it's because I didn't ask them. They didn't know it was okay. You know, they think once they get to that point.
Well, obviously there's some embarrassment there.
For sure.
So
but
just, hesitant.
if we stayed in front of them from a place of, hey, I'm just here to give you advice and be here as a guiding light for when things make sense for you for one of your most important investments, I feel like we have an obligation.
You know, you bring up such a good point, April. It's interesting. Part of the way my systems work are on Thursdays, I make past client calls, right? And so I have a real specific system on how to do it. I always can get better and more consistent. But the way mine works is the first Thursday of every month, I call people that we closed last year this month. The next Thursday, I call people that we closed 2 years ago this month. The third Thursday of the month, I call people that we closed last month, because now it's been a little bit of a gap. It's a good time to touch base with them. How's everything going? Any concerns? Do you need any a plumber or whatever, right? And then the fourth Thursday is folks that we closed 3 years ago. So it's touching base with 4 years worth of clients each month. And I used to be, I wouldn't say nervous to make the phone calls, but I used to probably not look forward to it. And then you start making the calls, because I had coaching and accountability, and if I didn't make the calls, I had to write a check. So I figured I might as well make the calls. Make money or pay money. Let's make money.
Right.
And so,
isn't it crazy we have to even get to that point?
It's ridiculous. Yes.
Accountability is fun.
That's right. And so, making those phone calls, I think the biggest probably hesitation that most agents or lenders would, when I would tell you most lenders never call their past clients. Probably most agents don't either, for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
But like, we all sign up for these systems that sends them emails and we think that's good, right? That's not a relationship.
No.
And so I think the biggest hesitation for is, what the heck am I going to say, right? What like, I got to ask for the sale, all these things, right? When you really don't need to do any of that. All you need to do is check on them. Hey, how are you doing?
Yeah.
How's the house?
Mm-hmm.
How's the family? It's just about a conversation. That's as simple as it is. And it still surprises me, even though it happens most every day that I'd make these calls, it still surprises me what they remember about the transaction and what their thoughts are about it. I don't have to ask them, will you refer me your friends and family? Because they say, Michael, I just gave your name to somebody, or that we had such a great experience with your team that we are constantly talking about you to other people. But if you don't have that simple, just reach out of conversation, and you may be able to bring some specific piece of value. And I think it makes it even easier to make the call when you're like, hey, just wanted to give you an update on the value of your house. I don't know if you know this or not. Because that's simple. Like, and who doesn't want an expert opinion on the value of their home? Like, you could send it to me every day. I want it. Like, I want to know.
Right.
We all get the Zillow. We all get the, so many home bots and My Home IQs and all those things.
Mm-hmm.
I probably have 15 different real estate agents that have me set up on theirs. And so I look at it every time. I'm just curious. They all have a little bit different numbers. It could be a home bot with 3 different agents and I get 3 different numbers, which is kind of funny, right? But the point is, we're all curious about that. And so check on the family first, but then just give them hey, just want to give you an update on the real estate market. Most people would be happy to know that.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about timing, right? It's all about timing. So that actually brings me something that I want to bring up to you, get your thoughts on this, because we're going through some things right now where we're considering buying some commercial space for us, tired of renting this. My wife also owns a company that they rent. They spend a lot more money in rent than I do. We're like, wow, this power that we could have towards that. So curious, do you own any commercial real estate? And I would say that's probably one of the things, as we're, as my company and my wife's company have had this discussion. It's like, what the heck have we been doing? Why didn't we do this a long time ago, right? Not always we were in a position or place where that made sense, but it's like, wow, we could have done this before. So what are your thoughts on the commercial space? And in general, and as a business owner, you have a few different businesses, as you mentioned. Do all your businesses own real estate, or does an entity own real estate for those, or how does that work?
Yeah, we have an entity that owns all of our real estate. So we own where our office building is, and then we also did salon suites. It was twofold. When we worked with the designer and the engineer, we said, hey, if I end up needing all of these agent, we're going to make them into a bunch of different spaces. If I end up needing all these agent offices, great, we can always expand into that space. If not, it's so funny. Three of my closest friends are all hairstylists. And in conversation, their whole process is very similar to how we get our license. They go to school, they get their license, they go work at a salon where
Figure it out.
where they're on commission. They practice on people until they build up a book of business. And then they kind of want to grow, but their only option for growing is to run a salon. And if you've ever ran a salon, you understand there's a lot of drama that goes on in a lot of salons. And so I'd help some clients, buy and sell salons. And I just kind of had that insight. And I thought about it kind of like our business. Same thing. We get our license, we go work for somebody on commission until we build up a book of business. And then we're ready to go to what's next. And I ended up, owning a brokerage, which was nowhere near as fun as I thought it was going to be. And then I kind of backed it down. And now I'm at a place where I've got a platform, with EXP as my brokerage, but I still run my company the way I want to. And I was like, how can we do that for the hairstylists? And so, we didn't come up with a concept, but it was, it's one that's been done before, but it worked perfectly for our building layout because I've got all these spaces now that if I ever want to expand to and have individual agent offices, I can. But right now it's doing very well as a salon because that train of thought has taken off. They have a book of business. They get to run their own business. They don't have to worry about a receptionist booking them when they do all of that themselves, but they have their own space and they're running their own businesses out of their spaces.
What's the square footage of any specific one of those typically? I'm just curious how much space that is.
About 120 square feet. So they're literally 10 by 10s.
Yeah.
Maybe some different views. We've got some that are on the interior, some exterior, some have a window.
How many do you have?
In that one, we have 14 different suites.
Oh, wow.
So then we opened another one next door in the building beside us. We bought that one and we did executive office suites where I told you I want to put my podcast, but they stay rented so much that I can't put a podcast studio in. And then we did one. We had a lot of people coming in that did more than hair. They do brows, they do Botox, they do a little bit of everything. So we started spa suites besides salon suites.
Oh, wow.
And then we've opened a few of those throughout the area with some other partners. And then we bought some commercial spaces in downtown Benson just because I want to see Benson thrive and grow like I know it's going to. I'm excited for a lot of these small towns. We could talk about that another day. But anyway, that's more of a long-term play that we saw an opportunity to purchase a building and then turn around and just lease it. So I'm one of those. I've never done a lot of residential rentals. One of my mentors, Sharon, she has a ton of residential rentals. And I remember all people, through the years, people were like, you don't have rental properties? And I was like, no. I thought to myself, I'm saving my money because I want commercial rental properties. And so we got to a point just during COVID. It sounded like the craziest thing in the world, but why not? And we built the two commercial buildings and have continued to invest in that way.
Well, you cannot get your haircut virtually.
No.
So that's a good, interesting that you bring that up too, because one of the banker buddies of mine, David Forrest, I don't know if you know David or not. He's told me recently, he's like, buying hair salons is like it's like the amount of, the per dollars you get per square foot is pretty darn good from a rental standpoint. The challenge with that is there's a lot of plumbing involved. Lots of
infrastructure, lots of cabinets and bowls and plumbing
yes. Yeah, that's so the infrastructure, as you said, that can imagine be challenging for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't build it, you had to.
No, we built it.
Oh, you built it from scratch.
Yep.
So
and
easier to do it from that way.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then you could just cap it off if you need to, I guess, right?
Right. And that's what I was saying. Like when we designed it, we were kind of like either or. Okay, so it's a good expansion model for me if for some reason the salons don't take off like we're hoping they will. But luckily they've taken off and we keep a waiting list. And honestly, there's as many people going to hair school as there are real estate school, I feel like. I mean, it's a booming business too. And
that's my daughter wants to do hair. So she's 16. She's trying to figure out what she's going to be doing. And we told her, of course, the natural progression is to go to college. And we feel like you're going to go to college. She's super smart. She's got great grades. She's not sure she wants to do that. I'm like, you do whatever you want to do. Just go be damn good at it, whatever it is. Right. But you may want to do some business classes if you're going to do hair, because you're going to eventually have to figure out how to run your own business.
Yes.
So very interesting that you brought that up. Let's talk probably one of our last topics today, where it's crazy how fast this goes. Tell me, to you, what does servant leadership mean to you? I want to get your thoughts on that.
For me, I feel like you've constantly got to give back to what's been given to you. That goes back to my faith. I remember where I was sitting when I really realized that leadership was one of the 11 talents that God gave out. And I remember thinking, like, I wasn't especially smart in school. I was an average C student. I can't sing. I'm not creative. I'm not artsy. And, I think some of us all have that in us, like, wow, what am I really good at other than talking? I love to talk. But what does that really mean? And I finally realized in my adult life that was a piece of leadership. Like, being the gift of gab was building up to me being in a leadership position. And I've loved it, even though I wasn't prepared for it when I became a leader. I feel like ever since I've had that revelation that that's what I'm supposed to be doing, I want to constantly better myself to make sure I'm as good of a leader as I can. And at the end of the day, what that means to me is turning around and helping the next person in line. Whether you're where you're going or not, you're going up a ladder, you can get somebody else further up the ladder. And I love helping other agents find success and what that looks like for them. So on our team, we talk a lot about quality of life, but also what is quality of success. Not everybody wants to sell 100 homes per year. That's not what success looks like, but they want to be able to contribute financially, but also be able to pick their kids up from school. Mm-hmm. That was a big deal for me. I was always a bus kid. I was always in daycare on a school bus because all my parents worked. And I just remember my kids never rode a bus a day in her life. That's quality of life and quality of success to me. Nothing to do with how much is in my bank account, everything to do with the time that I can set aside. And so I work really hard to figure out what that means to other people. And then I just believe in giving back to industries or whatever it is that pour into you. So I tell people a lot, you need to give back spiritually, whatever that looks like, is as far as volunteering your time with your church. You need to give back if your kids are in school. The schools are pouring into your children. You need to give back to something that they're doing. And then how can you volunteer or serve to give back to your business? So for me, it started as, being on board of director for chambers, being a part of a Civitan group, being on our Association of Realtors. I was a secretary until I was the president. And then I served on our Home Builders Association board. And now, I'm a county commissioner. And it's all about being involved. And, the industry, the community has done so much for me. I owe it to give it back in as many ways as I possibly can. So I don't know. I just feel like it's very important. Leadership revolves around other leaders bringing up other leaders. And I think it's important that, any table you want to have a seat at, you want to have a voice, you need to spend time volunteering in these organizations to be able to have that voice.
Yeah, there's no question. Like, if there's something that you're willing to or wanting to see more of or better of, then just get involved and try to learn and find more how you can help that way. I think there's so many benefits in doing that. And it's just, then you get to learn from other leaders too, right? John Maxwell, right, in some of his books says, if it's lonely at the top, you're doing it the wrong way, right? Mm-hmm. People that feel like they're doing it all by themselves, it's all about helping the next person. And like you said, pulling them up. Somebody else is pulling you up and you're pulling somebody else up. And that, I think, is absolutely servant leadership. So
100%.
As we wrap up, first of all, thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else you want to mention to the audience at all that we haven't covered? I know we've covered a whole lot.
We did cover a lot. No, just that, I would love to see as many people in our schools as we can. I use it as a resource to help train up your agents. It truly is a passion project. I've got some amazing people who have stepped up in leadership and just said, hey, somebody showed me how to do this once. How can I help somebody else? And so most of our classes are led by other realtors who are in the trenches with you. And I think that's really important. And I think we owe it to our clients to be as educated and informed as we can possibly be, because it's not fair to them that they are trusting us to advise them and we don't choose to go take the next step, learn the next thing. Everything is figure outable, but you have to know the path to figure it out. And so, like I said, I'd love for everybody to go follow the Real School on Facebook, but join us at all of our classes, because that's really what it's about, is others helping others be better at what they're doing, because we know at the end of the day, it's gonna help everybody as a whole, our consumers and our agents.
Yeah, it's missing in our side of the world. So I'm listening to you talk about that and thinking, maybe I need to brainstorm on how to do something like that locally with the lender side of the world, because it's definitely, we don't have anything like that locally put on by other local lenders.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that maybe people would be hesitant of, and I'm glad to hear you say this, like, this is not a recruiting thing at all, right? And so, people shouldn't feel like if they're sending their team to they shouldn't worry about the being recruited to EXP or to your team. And that's really, really important that people understand that.
Yes. Like I said, we never even really talk about it. Every once in a while, we will make sure we explain it in detail if there is going to be a class on EXP. And we even try to do it on times that are not during regular Real School hours. So there's not a bait and switch. It's not like we bring you in the last 10 minutes, we give you our spiel. There's truly none of that. It's actual, just real world based training put on by realtors who care about making sure that the other agent on the other side is confident for their client too. And, I'm the kind of agent, whether, it be a fault or not, that I have agents on the other side that say, thank you for being so helpful, because it is our goal to be emotionally stable for our clients, because they're making a huge transition. If you've ever moved, it changes the way you drive home from work every day. It changes the grocery store you go to. It sounds like little things, but those are overwhelming things. So a lot
of the people you hang out with for the rest of your life.
Exactly. And so I think we should not take these things lightly. We should not take their, not just financial investment, but their emotional investment lightly. And I pride myself on being one of those agents that tries to be cool, calm, and collected, treat everybody with respect. Let's have high integrity. And part of that integrity is knowing that I have learned as much as I can to advise somebody to the best of my ability. Or if I haven't, then I'm definitely not going to go it alone. I'm going to ask somebody who has gone down this path before, because worst thing about our industry is every day is different.
That's the truth. Amen. Well, thank you so much for being here, April. Thank you guys for listening and watching. Please be sure and subscribe, and comment. And of course, if you know anyone that you think would be a great guest for us in the future, would love a DM or a comment about that as well. Thanks so much for your time, and see you the next time.